Hello and welcome to The Machine, a computer science education podcast from the South East Technological University of Ireland. My name is Rob O'Connor. I'm from the Department of Computing and Mathematics at SETU, and today we're asking a big question. Why study computing? If you've ever wondered about whether computing is the right path for you, or maybe you're just curious about what it involves, well then this is the episode for you to wrap your ears around. Computing and technology can sometimes feel overwhelming, even mysterious, particularly if you're not already in the field. There's lots of questions that people ask us as educators. Things like, what kind of jobs are out there? Do I need to be a maths wizard? Is it all about programming? And spoiler alert, the answer to the last two are a resounding no. Now, joining me in the podcast today are Amanda Gater and TJ McDonald, both from the Department of Computing and Maths at SETU. We'll be breaking down some of the myths and misconceptions about studying computing. We'll explore the diversity of careers in the field, from industries like healthcare and finance to, of course, just plain tech itself. We'll also talk about the essential role of computing in everyday life, from the phones in our pockets to cutting edge areas like AI, although we don't get into that in too much detail. Along the way, we'll highlight the transferable skills that someone can develop through computing, things like problem solving, critical thinking, and how these skills can prepare you for a future-proof career. So whether you're a potential student, somebody considering a career change, or just somebody interested in learning about computing in general, stick with us for the next 40 minutes or so. There's a lot to unpack, so we'll start by having TJ and Amanda introduce themselves. Oh, and by the way, since we recorded this, both have got promotions in the university. TJ has moved up to become an academic integration lead. I'm not even sure what that is. And Amanda has taken over TJ's job as assistant head of department. It basically means they're both my boss. So hopefully they come out of this podcast sounding really good. As for myself, I'm still a lowly academic, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Anyway, let's discuss why you should study computing.
My name is Amanda Gater and I'm a lecturer in the Department of Computing and Mathematics.
My name is TJ McDonald and I'm the Assistant Head Department for Computing and Mathematics at SETU Waterford.
Okay, so we're going to talk about why somebody should study computing. It's a kind of I'm going to call it a blue sky conversation. I'm looking at big picture stuff, but I suspect we might get into some of the small micro issues as we discuss things. I'm going to start with a question about computing careers and the stereotype versus the actuality. So the stereotype of somebody who works in computing is probably somebody who looks like me, which is a man of a certain age with a beard, kind of a bit nerdy, and is somebody who probably I am actually wearing a black jumper today, but somebody who's wearing black, sitting on their own, having a kind of a solitary existence. That's a kind of a stereotype. There's another stereotype that has emerged over recent years, which is kind of the tech bro, which I really dislike. So Amanda, can I ask you first to maybe just talk about the diversity of careers in computing?
Yeah, I suppose, like you said, this whole idea of it being a man's career and, these programmers are nerds in a room or whatever. But for me, I certainly find as a woman in computing, there's so many areas that I would find enjoyable. So we've got areas, I suppose, that are big at the moment, things like business intelligence, data analysis, and you might think, okay, well, where would I work in a company like that? What would I have to do with business intelligence? And, places like Tesco, we're using club cards, and, why do we use club cards? Why do they give us money off of products? Because they're mining our data. Stats come out, you hear things like people who buy nappies on a Friday night tend to buy beer. They're using people who drink Diet Coke read 7 times more books than people who don't. That's kind of interesting areas of retail where companies need people to have a look at data. Then you have things like my own area, cloud computing and network infrastructure. I never thought I'd have any interest in this kind of an area, and then by being in college and studying different modules, you kind of go, I'm really interested in how the internet works and how all the wiring works and how information travels. So, and then I suppose we're leading into the more, computer vision, people who may be more creative, who are interested in, we're learning a lot from trying to train robots and how to visualise data and stuff like that, and visualise objects. And I suppose one that's come up for me recently is AI and robotics. I know somebody, a family member, who's having an operation in January, and a robot is conducting the back operation, so we're kind of changing really from just being this boring programmer who's in a room to being able to work in health or retail or, finance. There's many areas.
TJ, you're on an industry panel here at SETU. I mean, I don't want to kind of get into the nitty gritty of people who are on it and things like that, but you're dealing with companies the whole time. And I suppose when I see meetings when I hear about meetings with these companies, a lot of these, okay, they are technology companies, but equally they're not technology companies. For example, one of the biggest employers of our graduates is a financial services company that happens to do technology, and you're nodding there. So do you see that in your role, that it's not just tech for tech's sake?
No, like there's the pure tech companies that we provide talent for. But I think no matter what company you look at, and as I said, whether it's an insurance company, whether it's an agricultural company that we all know in the region, they all have huge IT requirements. All their systems are built on data. That data has to be stored, that data has to be transmitted, that data has to be secured. So those are all the skills that they need. So IT is very much pervasive across a lot of industries, and we see that on the industry board when we meet and they talk about the various roles. Yes, they need programmers, and yes, they need database designers and networkers, but they've identified up to 22 different roles that they have in their different diverse companies, be it software companies or different, as we said, in fintech, in pharmaceutical, ag, whatever. There's a lot of diversity there. So
could you talk about maybe some of those roles? So let's say, okay, a programmer is somebody who is involved in writing code or designing systems, that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's just park that for a moment. Outside of the traditional programmer, what are the types of roles that you're talking about there? Yeah,
well, obviously the data is very central to all this, right? And
that's exploded in the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's exploded. And I mean, the whole idea of, I suppose, data is at the centre of everything now. So the database person is still a key element of any part of an organisation. But as Amanda alluded to as well, it's the value added with the data now really is where they're going. So they're going for data warehousing, data analytics, data visualisation. So that's a whole new area that has emerged really in the last decade. Then obviously security, as we know ourselves, is a very important aspect of it, and computer forensics and security has exploded, and they are our most sought after graduates actually, those specialists that have those skills, because every organisation realises now no one wants to have a cyber attack. As we know ourselves, it's not a simple thing to get over. So it's very important that those skills are there. Then obviously we have the cloud. Everything is stored in the cloud at the moment, so it's a different vision and a different way of handling data storage. And then if we just jump to the other side of it, we have the whole idea of the emergence of AI. And everyone is struggling / I suppose trying to identify where AI is going to change their organisation. And we've seen examples that is transforming jobs month by month. And we see the amount of, I suppose, interest in it, but also the potential across companies. And companies are very much kind of going, okay, let's explore this. Where can this transform? Because it's going to transform their businesses and their organisation as a whole. So the diversity of options is immense.
I was at an event recently, and there was some videos from past graduates were being played, and there was one student, he's a graduate who has gone on to have a wide career, which included working for the European Space Agency and a whole host of different roles down throughout the years. And I kind of, what I loved about it was to see how this person had changed, had gone from product, programming, product design to I don't even know what they were doing for the space agency. I think it was something to do with safety systems. I'm not exactly sure because it was only a short video. But what I loved about it was there was a kind of a meandering path. Now, and the thread of it all was technology, but it wasn't, I'm going in every day doing the same thing for 10 years. Yeah. It was vastly different. I mean, Amanda, would that be your experience from talking to graduates of computing programs, irrespective of where they come from.
Absolutely, and I think as well, you know, for people even like me, you know, I don't like repetitiveness. You know, I love change. I love things changing all the time. I love moving around, you know, and I think that that's a really key area in computing. You know, a degree in computing will give you the foundations to move on then and specialise in whatever area that you choose to. And like you said, you know, you can move careers and slide over, you know, sideways, as we'd say sometimes, you know, within an organisation and change the path that you're on. So, I mean, it's never dull and boring, that's for sure, when we're working in this area.
I want to talk about some skills that somebody might learn if they were to study computing. Computing, computer science, software development, whatever it might be. Okay, so let's say programming, data, all of those actual tangible, almost vocational skills, right? I remember actually when I started 100,000 years ago, I remember my father saying something to me. It was something like, it's almost like a trade for the 21st century. Do you know what I mean? In terms of programming and, you know, building websites and things like that. But I'm thinking about other skills that you might get through computing. So stuff about, like, say, problem solving, or critical thinking. So I don't know if any of you want to maybe just talk about how those manifest themselves through studying computing, and then how they can have an impact in the real world.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we are very strong on at SETU is the whole idea of problem solving. We give them a problem, we say, can you solve that? And also, I think what's very important is that we put it into a team. And team skills are really important for organisations, because going back to what you started off with, Rob, you know, the idea of someone sitting on their own in a corner making a contribution now is no longer really valid. What they're looking for people now who obviously have communication skills as much as technical skills, people who will work as part of a team, people who are innovators, people who are problem solvers, people who have a logical mind, but people who actually want to work with other people. It's a very important part of what the computing sector are looking for now. And I think when we talk to the industry board members that we have, and the people who take our students on placements and employ them on graduate programs, you know, what they say is, like, you know, we want them to be technically proficient, but we also need them to be team players. We need them to have good communication skills. We need them to be problem solvers. We need them to be self-directed thinkers, people who can work on their own, but equally is adept working in a team. And that's really, I think, one of the things that it opens up computing to a lot more people, because this isolation that we had, I suppose, a misconception of, is gone. So work as a team, we work on that in terms of giving a problem, and often we see synergies between analysing and designing a problem in one module, and then that can be transferred to implement a program and solution somewhere else. So I think there's a strong focus with that, and that's what our employers want. They want that type of skill set. The days of someone, as I said, going to sit in the corner is gone.
And I think you get that naturally from our courses without you realising it, you know, and that ability to have an attention to detail, you know, and that just comes from the more we're sitting in different subject areas. It's not just in programming, it's in every area of computing that we are good at, like we said, breaking down complex problems and looking for solutions, you know.
And the transferability of the skills, I think, is very important, because, as you said, I mean, like, we have different courses, but they all have the same common core of probably 4 modules going through, like, you know, whether that's programming, data analysis, network security. That's their common thread in them all. And that's what makes you so transferable then when you go in. Like, we have graduates who go into a certain role, and 4 or 5 years later they've jumped 2 or 3 different roles across to a different thing, because they have that transferable skills, yet they have the curiosity to want to move as well. And I think that's really important for the modern day worker, that they have that ability to move across not only sectors, but, you know, across different national boundaries and everything like that, to travel and everything that goes with that.
Yeah, and I suppose also working in roles that don't exist yet, you know, because we see, I mean, you're talking about data, and like a data analyst 20 years ago would have been a very, very niche job. There would have been very few. Now the whole data science area is absolutely massive. That's just data. I mean, you can, if we talked about AI, which I don't want to do in too much detail because we could go down a rabbit hole, but that area is just coming on leaps and bounds in the last number of years. There's something that I'm thinking about with respect to transferable skills that somebody learns in a computing course. And look, I know, we're all in SETU, so I suppose we are talking about our own courses. just the caveat in the podcast is you could be doing you could be looking at computing somewhere else. It mightn't even be in Ireland. It could be anywhere. This is kind of pretty much universal. But I'm thinking about a lot of the students. Think about two things. So first off, one thing that I notice about students is we change the way they think. Now that sounds very that sounds almost kind of like a Big Brother type thing. I don't mean it like that, okay? What I mean we're trying to make people into more resilient, autonomous, critical thinkers.
Independent thinkers.
So I say, like, a lot of the first years, I don't know, Amanda, if you experience this, a lot of the problems I have with first years, or the issues that first years come to me with, are essentially, let me Google that for you problems. Do you know what I mean? Where they're used to asking somebody, they give them the solution, and then off they go on their merry way. Whereas we try to get you out of that mode to solving problems for yourself. And those that might be a programming problem, but equally it could be, I need to be somewhere at a certain time. How do I get there? You know what I mean? Or whatever that might be. It might be as atomic as that, or as simple as that. So it's that kind of independent thinking road. I know it sounds very simple, but you know, for maybe a young person who's never been away from home, that's something that they haven't done before. And the second one, and this is just something that cropped into my head because it happened recently enough. We would have, in computing, I would say, a higher number of students who are on the spectrum than potentially other disciplines. And I was thinking about a lecturer who teaches a second year module, and there's a student on it who technically will be very, very good. Interpersonal skills have been very, very weak for a whole variety of reasons, and they had to make a presentation in front of the class, and this student was really nervous about the presentation, didn't want to do it, but then obviously worked on it significantly, put a lot of amount of work in the background, and then stood up in front of the whole class and delivered the presentation and got a round of applause from the whole class at the end, because I don't think the lecturer ever thought they would do it. And to get I get a buzz hearing something like that, because that's a big step for somebody to take. I know it might sound very simple, but when we're close to the students and you see somebody make a leap like that, that's huge.
But you know what that tells me as well, Rob, you know, that the class gave that person a round of applause. You get that here because of smaller class sizes. So you not only have the lecturer knowing maybe that person is neurodiverse, maybe some of the students know as well, then, you know, a big achievement, everyone's behind that person clapping. I mean, that's powerful that's going on in our classrooms, you know, and it's powerful that that student actually felt strong enough in the end to stand up in our classrooms and say that, you know. I think that's pretty special.
And those soft skills, I think we're very good at getting here. As I said, you know, you don't go into a big lecture hall with 400 people. You go into a big lecture hall here is probably 50 or 60. You know, you have your small class sizes for your practicals. It's very much one-on-one. But because I think we get to know the students, we get to know their, I suppose, individuality, if that's the word. And we base ourselves around that. And, you know, there is a passion here to embrace that. And the growth you do see in students from first year to fourth year is immense. Absolutely immense. And it's transformative to some of them. And remember, we have placement in third year as well. So these students go on placement as well. So we have to get them ready to go out into the workplace. And that will be the next stage of the development as well. And we have students who go out to workplace and you kind of go, God, I hope they're okay in terms of, like, you know, out in the big bad world. And they come back transformed. They are completely changed because they've just got confidence about themselves. A lot of it is bringing out the best in each of the students, and that's a lot of it is about having confidence in your own ability and not be afraid to ask questions. Not simple questions, but I mean to engage with people, engage with teams. And the work placement, I think, is a really critical part of our courses that really, I suppose, you know, brings them along that journey.
I think it'd be hard to believe from the outside how well we know the students. You know, you see university, you see the gates, and you think, you know, Johnny's going in there now and he's only, you know, a face in the background. You know, I think people would be really surprised to know how much detail the lecturers have on each and every student that we have, you know, and even knowing where they're on placement and knowing when they come back, well, how'd you get on? What did you do? You know, it's a big place, but it's a small place, you know.
So I suppose the capstone, just that bit that we're talking about, a college degree or a university degree or university program is a process. we don't expect people to come in with a whole load of skills and we're just going to pile a load of technical stuff on top of them. It is a process. It's not just about the technical development, it's also about your academic development, but also about somebody's personal and social development as well. And it's all part of this kind of larger package. A lot of it is intangible. And some of the best moments in college are the bits that don't involve exams or projects. They're strange things that we maybe shouldn't talk about on a podcast, but that's another day's work. You can look it up for yourself. I'd like to bust some myths about computing, because we had an open event, and the amount of times I get asked this question: Amanda, do I need to be a maths expert to do computing?
No, and you know what? You have only to look at the mature students that we've put through to see that, like we have, students coming in from 6th year. Some of them are in pass maths, that's fine. Pass maths is fine. We bring you in and we're lucky. We have some great maths lecturers here, and they're well aware that everyone is coming into first year terrified of this maths. In my experience, if you go to maths and you go to class, you'll pass, I had a guy years ago come in. He was a carpenter. He'd left school at 15. He had no junior cert, no leaving cert. He's now a senior researcher up in TSSG. You're going to come in, you're going to do 6 modules every semester. You might find 3 of them easy. You might find 2 more okay, and then you're going to have one that you'll have to work at, But the good news is it's only for 12 weeks, and if you're weak at something like that, just pass. That's all you have to do, and do well in all the other ones, So in my experience, people who come in, who go to maths and go to class, don't fail maths. It's the people who come in, maybe meet a topic that they're not sure of, bury their head in the sand and then stop going. They're the horror stories that we hear of. It's certainly not, our maths is not rocket science. It's geared towards people who've left school.
TJ, have you anything to add to the maths?
Well, I was just saying, I remember one of my lecturers when I arrived in first year, and it stuck to me for many decades. And he said there's a high correlation between absenteeism and failure. Okay, yeah. And I think it's so true, because if you attend, very, very few of our people fail. They just don't fall at the wrong side of the line. If you don't attend, we try our best with you, but unfortunately you've made your own bed to lie in. But I do think, as I said, with the maths coming, we don't expect you to have, very high maths. Once again, those come in with computer science, yes, they have an advantage. They've done a bit in Leaving Cert. That's great to have as well. But we assume you know nothing in any module. When we come in, basically every module starts in first year is 101. Okay, and if you have that advantage, we'll challenge you in other different ways in practicals to make sure that you're not bored. But I think the thing is, we come in here, and a lot of us come in here over the years, and a lot of people do come in with very little computer knowledge. But all you want is a willingness to learn and a willingness to engage. And I think that's the recipe then for success.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question about, do I have to have programming experience before? You don't. You don't have to have done. I mean, if you do, that's great. But you don't have to have done any of this stuff before. Actually, sometimes it's a bit of a hindrance, because if somebody's a kind of a hacker who's kind of taught themselves this, they might have some really bad habits. It's like teaching yourself driving or teaching yourself how to play a musical instrument. You get really bad habits, and it's very hard to get out of those habits.
And may not engage with the class as well either, because you think you know it all, and saying, I don't have to go to this class. And then, as we said, we all have our ways that we want to teach. We all have our ways of different content we want to learn, and I think then they kind of can fall on the wrong sideline. So sometimes it's not an advantage.
I think it's worth saying as well that when you're in school, you're studying loads of subjects, and some of it you have, very little interest in, but you have to do it for your Leaving Cert or whatever. When you're coming out to do a computing course, you've made a decision that this is what I like. And I think people are genuinely surprised when they come in, because they're actually focusing on what they're interested in, and that makes it more enjoyable. You're not sitting in modules for the sake of it. It's a choice you've made.
Yeah, you're not having to, like, anyone who's there. That's why I always can never understand with people who don't come in. It's like, well, you've chosen to be here.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be here, go and do something else. There's loads of options available to you. Go get a job. There's tons of jobs available. Get a few quid for yourself. But it's sometimes an odd one. But anyway, look, myth busting about computing. You don't need to be a maths expert. You don't need to be a hacker. You don't need to be any of that kind of thing. You be just basically open to learn and have an interest.
Especially for mature students.
Oh yeah, sure. The mature students are always the best,
and they fly. They absolutely fly. Mature students come in and they panic, and they think, up to Christmas they're worried, and they're saying, these younger people, they'd say, they've done maths and Leaving Cert and whatever, but they don't sometimes have the work ethic that this mature student has, who's given up their time time, or maybe left the kids with childminders to come in and do the course, you know. And in my experience, you know, I don't know, do mature students fail at all? I don't know that I've ever really came across.
Some of our most memorable students are mature students,
absolutely,
because they come in here with, I suppose, a story that brought them in here in the first place, which is always a great place to start. And then with a drive and a desire, saying, I know I have to make something of this and I want to learn this. And they may struggle, you know, to adopt back into education. But when you see them transform and when you see them go through their journey, what comes out at the end of it is a fantastic graduate.
Oh, yeah. And again, just for maybe if you're in Ireland, I think a mature student is somebody who's 23 or 23 or over. Most school leavers would typically leave around 18-ish, that kind of time. But so 23 or over. But we've had all sorts down throughout the years, and everyone is welcome, I suppose. And that's, again, not just unique to SETU, that's across the board. I'd like to talk about careers then, if that's okay. Now, I know we talked about roles at the start, but I'd maybe like to talk about the rewards that are there. Well, look, money and perks and things like that are available in the broader technology space. So I don't know, money, let's talk about that first. Okay, TJ, go for it. You brought it up.
Well, I brought it up, and I know it's a vulgar, but it is still an important part of everyone's, I suppose, motivation. And I suppose if you look back at the Sunday Independent, they had the top paid graduates last Christmas, and computing was at the top of it. Okay, and typically computing graduate comes out around a 38 to 40k starting, and we know, from our graduates and from the companies, your increments are substantial as you move along. So that is, I think, a very nice driver that you come out after your 4-year degree that you could be starting off 38, 40k with a strong growth potential. So I think that is fantastic. I think in terms of flexibility, I think a business degree used to be the passport to travel the world. I think a computing degree now is what lets you travel the world. It's pervasive. No matter what company you deal with, software company, they have multinationals. They're across all the continents. As I said, no matter what sector you go to, they have IT departments. So whether you want to work in Australia, America, Asia, an IT and a computing degree is your passport for success. And last thing I'm going to say about this is the whole flexibility of it. There's not too many jobs where you can work from home or go into work. And I think computing is one of those ones. And it's one of the good things that come from COVID. People have the flexibility now to work at home, go into the office 2 or 3 days a week, interact with staff, but you have that flexibility. So you don't have that 1 or 2 hour commute every morning, every evening. Okay, which is, we all know, the killer for us all. Even Watford, we know, is not an easy town to get around. So that, I think, is a great flexibility to have. Go in if you want, but also stay home to you want. So flexibility, as I said, an opportunity to travel the world and to enhance your skill set, as we know. And I said, lastly, remuneration. I think are just
I'd say
winners.
It's family friendly.
Yeah.
I would, yeah. I'd actually call it a family-friendly career, and I suppose I'm speaking there from a female perspective even, when your kids are small and you're trying to get them all to school at 9 and you have to be in work at 9 and you have to be in 2 schools at the one time and all of this kind of thing, a career in computing has flexibility where, it might be that you start at 10 but that you finish at 7. There's not many careers where you have that option with time where you can be more flexible, and thankfully, we can work at different times of the day. We're not, somewhere like retail where the doors open from a certain time and they close at a certain time, so there definitely is. And just back to salaries there, I had a girl left software systems development a couple of years ago in May, and she started on 51,000. And I met her at her graduation in November or December, and she was after getting a £10,000 rise already, So she was on 61,000. She was about 24, living at home with her parents, So, I think we have to let people know about the money that's there, because I think it's important when we're making career choices, Yeah,
but don't just do it because of the money, because I'm not going to say it's changed. It hasn't really, but at the same time, if you come into something because of the money, you're setting yourself up for failure, because if you're not into maybe the problem solving side of it, forget about it, Are there any other aspects of the kind of the career, the perks that maybe you wanted to highlight?
I think the whole idea of, I suppose, the idea of someone doing 40 years in one job, I think, is very much gone. Okay,
absolutely.
All right. So I think all our children will have 3, 4, maybe 5 different jobs / careers. I think once again, computing gives you that opportunity. As we said, do you mean like, you know, whether you want to go into just a software ICT space, you have that, but also you have the potential to go into tech, pharma, finance, and then if you want to go into teaching at the end of your career, do you mean something like that? So there's a lot of options with that, and I think, you know, having a computing degree gives you, I suppose, the knowledge to be very much transferable in careers, and I think that is really what I think the next generations are going to be looking for, and that is something that doesn't typecast it. Like if you go to be a nurse or a teacher, you are a nurse or a teacher. That's your role, okay? Whereas if you have your general computing degree, and most of them are general, they might have a name on them, but they're general, that gives you the flexibility to jump to a different career in another decade's time, and again in the decade after.
I think a good example of that is even for myself. You know, I have a big passion for sport. And, you know, as the devices have come along and our wearables and all of that stuff, you know, it's great to be in a place in my career where, okay, I have my computing background, but I can now apply that to my passion, which is sport, you know. So I think in that sense as well, that no matter what your passion is, that degree in computing can be brought into it, you know, give you ideas, you know, and let you work in that area.
I'm conscious of time. We'll mention some courses in a moment, just at the end, but I'd like to maybe bring it back to the personal, because we talked about kind of high level stuff, and I suppose some low level stuff as well. But personally, like, this is maybe something that's unique to you, so there's no right answer or wrong answer to this. It's about what has been maybe the best thing for you about working in this field, or what have you learned in this field that has really had a positive impact on you or the people around you. And what I'll do is I'll go first, because I'll give you a moment to think about it. And it kind of ties in with what Amanda said. So look, I've a huge interest in music and audio, and I've done a whole lot of variety of things like that down through the years. And one of the groups I work with is Spree, which are a street theatre company based in Waterford. And for years we did a thing called the Wicked Woods, which was a Halloween event, which was actually housed in SETU, but that's a whole other kettle of fish, right? That was just a by the by. And I do the sound for them, and I do audio production and design for them. And the Wicked Woods was a kind of a spooky walk through the woods, and there was actors and things made and people jump out at you. I don't know, some of you might have been at it at some stage with your kids down throughout the years, frightening the life out of them. And so I did music for them, and I remember, like, they could be at this for 6-7 hours. They'd be on all afternoon into the evening, and I just had music on a loop or sound on a loop, and it kind of bugged me that it was just the same thing going around and around and again. So I wrote a little program. It was actually a combination of shell scripting and a bit of Python, using a Raspberry Pi to make a generative audio design box, so that basically they just plugged it in, connected it up to the speakers, and it didn't just play the same thing on a loop. It kind of evolved and it changed, and I got a real buzz seeing this thing stayed up for 12 hours and it didn't break. It kept going and it evolved and it changed the sound, and I've since taken that project on a little bit further, and I just love that because I was able to combine an interest in music and audio, an interest in theatre, and this technical thing, and it actually had real world impact in that, you know, I saw a load of kids get frightened in the best possible way. You know, so personally I got a real buzz off of that. So there you go, that's my one.
Do you want to go? I'll go if you want. Well, I've more of a personal one. I absolutely love meeting someone that I taught years ago, and I really love to meet someone kind of going, hi, I'm Mary, I'm John, you taught me in 1993, 94, and here I am now. I'm such a position and such, and I had such a great career, and here are my children, and they've just come through SETU or some other course as well, and I kind of, oh wow. But to know that they've had such a career and you played a small part in that, I really think is fantastic. And you see the diverse, interesting careers that they've had, and the energy that they have from coming through SETU and WRTC, WIT as it was then, and the affiliation they have. And I think that really, for me, it kind of goes, you know, it's kind of little, you know, it really is something that gives me a kind of a chuckle, kind of going, oh, that is fantastic. And it's great to think that you're part of that journey for that person. And when you think of the hundreds or thousands of people that we have, I suppose, assisted on their journey, that's what really does it for me. Because I said, you know, computing changed so much. What I taught them might even be relevant now. But they still obviously have a lifelong skill that they're still obviously using. So that's what I like the best.
Does not make you feel very old?
It does, and I am, Rob.
TJ's 100.
I know, because I'm seeing my own friends' kids coming in here now, and I'm starting to go, oh my God, hey, you can't be here. You're like 6, but they're not. They're 20. So I don't know. Amanda?
I just have to make a point on what TJ said there. I had a guy in second year years ago, and he went bananas on the drink in second year, and he used to come into me, and he was so intelligent, and I remember just saying it to him one day, I said, you have so much to offer. I said, you're breaking my heart. I said, to see you coming in, he used to be shaking coming into the class, and I used to say to him, you have so much to offer. He went off on work placement, grew up, came back, and when he graduated, he gave me a wink going past, and I was nearly crying looking at him going past, and I was saying, there he was, he'd become a man. He kind of came in a child, and went off the rails and all of that kind of stuff, and got his head together, and left, and he's flying, and that's brilliant. Do you know what I got out of computing, and you laugh, is I can spend hours at times at stuff I love in computing. I sometimes can use it to switch off. If I have a lot going on or whatever, sometimes I'll go in and I'll start working on something that I like, and I'll just switch off, and I know that sounds really nerdy, and I don't mean it like that, but you're lucky, Rob, you're one of the few that's creative and logical.
I don't know about that.
I'm not creative at all. Yeah. But I do have areas of computing that I love, that I can lose myself in, and I love that, and obviously now to be able to bring, sport and technology into my passions and stuff like that as well. It's not boring. I said that to you. I'm not someone who's great for the mundane, so I've got an awful lot out of it.
If somebody was listening to this and was interested in exploring computing options with us, okay, what TJ, look, you're the man in this role. Where should they go? What should they do?
Well, obviously our open days will be a good place to go to, and we've open days and open evenings on, so you can see them at setu.ie. Obviously, if you're a CEO applicant, they should apply to the CEO. I suppose we have 4 main courses. We have the computer science degree, which Rob is the courtier for. Yep. So I'll give that a plug. Then we have software system development, which Amanda is the courtier for, and obviously give that a plug. Then we have the IT degree with Sinead Walsh, and then we have creative computing with Bernie and Jackie. So 4 really interesting, insightful courses. Obviously have a lot of common modules, but very diverse in what you'll end up in terms of skill set at the end. And as I said, they're strong, very robust courses, industry certified and successful for many years. Those are the starting places for us on undergraduate. Lots of postgrad options as well for those that are out there. We have a lot of postgrad higher diplomas that are in areas like data analytics, which I really would, I suppose, people should explore. I think there's lots of that lifelong learning. That's one thing about computing. I would have said, Rob, as well, when you go into computing, you don't ever stop learning. No. It's a lifelong learning, and that's one of the, I suppose, challenges, but also one of the great things about it. Technology change, you move with, so you're never going to be bored. But we have some fantastic postgraduate opportunities as well, which I'd look at, and people should look at. I think they're great for SETU.
Amanda, just TJ mentioned a couple of the courses. So SSD, software systems development, which you look after, and also creative computing and IT. They're level 7 and level 8. Level 7
and level 8.
So what I mean, okay, so could you maybe just explain what is, let's say somebody says, I don't know what level 7, level 8 is. What is that?
So with a level 7 degree, you're coming in for 3 years and you're leaving with an ordinary degree, which is what we call it. The points,
it used to be the old diploma.
An old diploma, yeah. The points tend to be a bit lower on the level 7 degree. After level 7, you have an option then to do an add-on year and do level 8. Anyone who comes in on a level 8 degree, then they're really signing up for 4 years. So they're not leaving after 3 years if they wanted. They're going to stay and do the 4 years and have what we call an honours degree.
Yeah. But there's options there for people.
Absolutely.
And there's a whole variety of different ways people come in. I know we get a lot of students who come in from further education FETAC courses, whether it's WCFE in the road or any of the ones that are in the region. So students who do PLCs and then come on to the program, maybe they don't have the points for a course straight off. They come on, and of course they often people who come in from FETAC courses do very, very well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe because they've had that extra year of growing up, perhaps. I don't know.
Absolutely.
And as of course I will give a shout for computer science as well, because I suppose I look after that, and there's forensics and security, which is associated with that. I mean, the courses I think are 95% the same. There's a handful of modules of a difference between them. And look, I'll put links to all of those programs in the show notes, as well as links to the SETU website. And if you want to get in touch with any of us, you can find us on the website. Our email addresses are there. Just give us a shout. We're very approachable, very happy
to interact and to answer any questions that you have on any of your courses or any opportunities that you have.
Sometimes what I give is a little bit of advice to students at open day and things, you open our book and it's courses and, you're like, oh God, what's the difference in that, And I always say to them, have a look at the likes of the streams or the electives that you'd have, Rob, do you think you'd like to do computing and business or computing and sport?
Yeah.
Or do you think you'd like to do computing and, forensics? Sometimes I think for students leaving school, that's all they have even to hang on to, just to have a look through the courses and have a look at where they span off to. And do you see yourself, could you say, I never want to do psychology? Right, definitely. Well, that's the end of that. You can start to narrow yourself down a small bit, because I think the books can be daunting sometimes when you don't have the experience.
Yeah. Well, TJ and Amanda, thanks very much for speaking with us today. I think this is hopefully a very useful podcast. I hope anyone who's listening has found it informative. And if you did, please leave us 5 stars on your podcast app of choice. And if you didn't like it, sure, just say nothing.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Rob.
lads. Good
Thank
luck.
you. Bye now.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Machine. The show notes for the podcast contain some links if you'd like to learn a bit more about some of the topics discussed. It also includes contact details for Amanda, TJ and myself. Feel free to get in touch if you have any questions.
My name is TJ McDonald and I'm the Assistant Head Department for Computing and Mathematics. Go again.
Just go again, yeah.